this room here. It's great to be in Yavapai County, especially when you live in Phoenix. I think it was 147 degrees when we left, and to get here and have the doors open is terrific. Also, you know, I know that you're probably a little bit sick of the commercials and what's happening on TV. So at this stage of the campaign, you know, walking in at the front of the restaurant, it was a little bit empty, so I was concerned. Maybe the message isn't selling. So to come back here and have to bring extra tables and chairs, I want to give a big thank you to everyone here, for the host committee especially. We spent quite a bit of time up north and in Yavapai County, but for those of you that I met for the first time today, my name is Doug Ducey. I do want to be your next governor. We kicked off this campaign months ago, and I was joined by my wife Angela. And Angela and Maureen and Alex and I have been friends for over 30 years. It's hard to believe that, but it's true. And I have my 3 boys with me as well. Angela and I have been married 24 years this October. We have my son Jack, who's 17 and just completed his junior year. My son Joe, who's 15 and just completed his freshman year. And my son Sam, who's 11 and still listens to me. So we got off to a decent start, but out of that crew I only had 1 vote. And Alex has mentioned some of the high-profile endorsements that we've earned. And we're very proud of that. In addition to, you know, business legend Jerry Colangelo, Arizona Right to Life, and Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who's probably been the most successful reform governor in the country. And winning this broad support is somewhat of a surprise to me, because I don't come from any political background or family. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. My dad was a cop. I'm very much a product of the Midwest and the working class. But I want you to know, for full disclosure, because it is campaign season, that my first elective office was as homeroom representative in the 5th grade at Blessed Sacrament. And that was a very tough primary. And a lot of those kids are still mad at me. And word on the street is that they're saying nasty stuff about me on television. So watch out for that. But my folks split up my junior year of high school. My mom moved out west. I had a high school counselor that said college is affordable out there and there's a lot of opportunity. So I got my Datsun V210 and drove from Toledo, Ohio to Tempe, Arizona. I didn't know one person, and I'd never been to Arizona. And it's been an unbelievable adventure. And I imagine there's probably some people here today at lunch that have a similar story. I'm just curious, how many folks today were born somewhere other than the state of Arizona? Wow, even in Yavapai County. So I'd like to say thank you to the natives for a great state in which to move. And I'd also like to say to those of you from the Midwest or California, let's make sure that the bad ideas that are killing those economies and pushing people out of those places are not applied here in the state of Arizona. And the governor can have something to do with that. I've spent my entire adult life in the private sector. I studied finance at Arizona State University. I'm a proud entrepreneurial fellow at the Eller School of Management at the U of A. I worked my way through college at the local Anheuser-Busch distributorship and began my career at Procter & Gamble. And then, along with a few others, we built an ice cream company called Cold Stone Creamery. We started small with a great product and grew Cold Stone to 1,440 ice cream stores operating in all 50 states. We sold Cold Stone in 2007, and today it operates in 25 countries around the world. It's an American success story, and I'm proud that it started right here in Arizona. We did it without government, we did it without subsidies, we did it without tax incentives for chocolate-dipped waffle cones. We did it the right way, with big dreams and hard work and great people. And things like that happen when a state embraces free enterprise. If anybody asks you what Doug Ducey's campaign is about, tell them it's about growth and job creation. I built a company, now I want to shrink a government and grow an economy. When I did kick off this campaign in February, I said job one would be getting our economy back and running at full strength. And that remains job one. But there's a couple things we have to watch out for along the way. I think it's important that Arizona make its own decisions. And I think when we make our own decisions, we make better decisions. Like we did in 2012. Remember that, George? When there was a $1 billion permanent sales tax increase on the ballot called Proposition 204. Out-of-state special interests were trying to raise our sales tax. They made one big mistake in that legislation. They named the state treasurer in the bill 11 times. So I felt the obligation to step forward and communicate with the voters on what was actually in that bill. And on election day, we won. And Prop 204 lost. And last year, for a change, your sales taxes actually went down. And that's how I'll lead as your governor. I'll play defense against bad ideas that will hurt our economy, and more importantly, I'll go on offense with good ideas that will make our state more attractive in which to live and do business. I want to begin by getting rid of any unnecessary tax and regulation. I'd like to begin by lowering our income tax with the goal of driving it as close to zero as possible. We built Cold Stone Creamery by looking at the best ideas from other companies around the country. It's the best of McDonald's franchise model, the best of Subway's unit economic model, and the best of Starbucks branding model. I want to do the same thing as your governor. I want to look at other states that do things better than the state of Arizona. There's a lot of cool things about running for governor. One of them is your old college friends will host luncheons for you in cooler climates around the state. But another one is other governors will return your phone calls. And I've taken full advantage of that. I've reached out to Rick Perry to talk about the business environment in Texas. I've reached out to Mitch Daniels in Indiana and Scott Walker in Wisconsin and talking about the ideas that are turning those states around. So I'll continue to do that. We'll continue to focus on things around the economy. In addition to the economy, K-12 education animates this campaign. As the father of 3 kids, I think it's a critical component to our quality of life in this state and really to our continued economic development. I would say a kid's really cute when they're 5 years old and they don't know much. They're not that cute 13 years later after kindergarten and 12 years of school when they still don't know much. And I've experienced it myself. 18-year-olds that can't count change in an ice cream store that have a piece of paper that says that they have some achievement from one of our local schools. So we have a lot of room for improvement in K-12, but we know how to do this. I mean, the state of Arizona has 3 of the top 10 high schools in the nation in our state. And this is much more about reapplying the best practices that work in the schools that are excelling and reapplying them across our state. So that's something that I'll want to do as your governor. And then lastly, what animates this campaign is getting Arizona out from underneath the thumb of the federal government. I think we have way too many mandates and dictates out of Washington, D.C. And you know, I'm running to be governor of all the people, not just one faction. And when Alex talks about those endorsements, I'm proud that it's such a broad coalition that we've built. But I'm talking to people of all different backgrounds in every part of our state and every county. And the one thing I think everyone agrees on is that Washington, D.C. is broken. So we're asking that they push those dollars and those programs back to our state so we can make our own decisions. There's a lot of good people in this race, and early voting has already started. But if I can use a football analogy, as we're heading to college football season very soon, you know, we're in the 4th quarter with 3 minutes left. And if you like what we're talking about in this campaign about kickstarting our economy, real reforms for K-12 education, and getting Arizona out from underneath the thumb of Barack Obama, then I need your help in every way you can provide it, from support to resources to volunteers. I'm really proud. We got a lot of young people on our campaign, and there's been a lot of young people have told me in the rooms I'm going into. So if you want to volunteer on the campaign and you have a desire to ever be a business person or an entrepreneur, this is really good training for that, because there's little to no pay, and it's a lot of hard work. So you're welcome to get involved. I look forward to any questions you have here this afternoon, and again, thanks for having me. Yes, Noel.
Tell us about Common Core and where you come down on that.
Thanks, Noel. This question falls under K-12 education. For those of you that know what Common Core is, I'm opposed to Common Core, but I want you to know why I'm opposed to it. The reason is Common Core ties us into funding from Washington, D.C. It also has purchased obedience from the states to get waivers that they require from No Child Left Behind. That's why I'm opposed to it. We do need higher standards inside our schools, okay? We need our kids to know their multiplication facts by 3rd grade, know how to read before they go on to 4th grade, know how to compose a sentence in high school. I also think they should know their American history and civics before they graduate from high school, which is something we don't currently test. So my focus will be on improvement in K-12 education, but it won't be in tying us to Washington, D.C. So for that reason, I stand opposed to Common Core. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Dan Chicago.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm doing my homework on that. That's why I'm here.
Thanks for being here, Dan.
I think the top 3 for me is 0 and 1,000. I did my research. And I have more than one question. I don't know if I'm able to get them all.
We'll ask one, and then we'll come back.
The first one is on my attention is I'm following the ads on TV. Everybody's ads. And all of a sudden, slam, bam, slam, are coming at you hard.
Yes.
Being a tax dodger or not there, you're responsible.
So, thank you, Dan. Dan's question's on the negative ads that are on TV on me. And I want to say, as a campaign, this is the price of admission into public office. And some of the smart people in politics, which I'm new to politics, have said it's a good sign when they're pulling up the garbage truck and dumping trash on your campaign, because it means you're creating separation with your opponents. But and anybody that has questions on what they're saying about me, you can go to our website, Ducey.com, and there's a link right there that says "Get the Facts," and it addresses everything that they're saying. One that they're saying is that I didn't pay my taxes. Okay, that's not true. I did pay my taxes. My taxes are paid in full. I had a late payment on my taxes, and this happened more than 4 years ago. When I ran for treasurer, the same issue came out. I addressed it then. I said I'm not perfect. I made a mistake, and I won't make it again, and I haven't. I also was asked if I would fire my accountant, and I said I would, except I love her too much. So that hasn't happened again. Taxes work with the one issue, and what was the other one? Yeah. Well, I mean, you're known by the company you keep. I've got I think a pretty good attorney here in town who's vouching for me for 30 years. They are trying to say things about my integrity. They're attacking the thing that I'm most proud of in my entire life, outside of my wife and 3 children, and that's Cold Stone Creamery. We had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of franchisees and entry-level entrepreneurs that opened up those stores. Did all of them succeed? This is America. Success is not guaranteed. The overwhelming majority of them did succeed, not only in America, but now in 25 countries around the world. I have to tell you, I'm a little bit surprised that in a Republican primary, Republicans are trying to use free enterprise against somebody who spent their entire life there. But that's what my opponents are doing. A lot of great Arizonans built Cold Stone Creamery. A lot of great Arizonans work there today. It's something that I'm proud of. It was a risk that I took on, and I stand proud of the record.
Let me go back to the question.
I want to see if there's another question, and then I'll come back. Yes? Matthew.
What's your plan for pension reform?
Okay, Matthew's question is what's the plan for pension reform? The first thing I want to point out, because I'm going to be able to give you 1 or 2 or 3 minute answers here, we were the first campaign to put a plan out, a written plan, and this is my Procter & Gamble training. We were taught that if it's not written down, it's a daydream. So most of the answers are in here. This is not only what I'm campaigning on, but it's what I'll govern on. These will be my priorities. In terms of pension reform, I think it's important. It's something we need to do, but I think it's also important to remember, and I say this as the son of a police officer, I understand how these families organize their lives around these retirement programs. And I think sometimes some elected officials have talked about these plans in an almost irresponsible way. It's important to remember that the guys that run into burning buildings and fight the bad guys and teach the children and keep the public records, these are the good guys, okay? And we want to continue to attract the best and the brightest. So the retirement program is important, and I want to think of it as a total compensation plan. So the good news is we have over $30 billion in assets set aside for our pensions at the state level today. The bad news is we have nearly $15 billion in unfunded liabilities. So anybody that's in retirement today or approaching retirement, you're fine. Your retirement is taken care of, and you won't have anything to worry in terms of the state pension fund. You can't say the same for the teacher that was hired last week. So this is something that's been described for Arizona as the least dirty shirt in the closet in comparison to, say, California or Illinois, which I basically look unfixable to me as a finance major. So it's something I'll address as governor. It's something that can be fixed, but we're not going to pull the rug out from underneath anybody that's organized their retirement around it. Thanks, Matthew. Any other questions? Yes.
Tyler, border issues. I've heard ignorant under border cities.
So Ty's question is on the border, and that is coming up in every room that I go into, Ty. It wasn't so much 6 weeks ago, but with some of the recent news and headlines, it is. And you know, my belief is the federal government's first job is to protect its citizens. And I think by any measure, Barack Obama has failed Arizona and America. And I come at this conclusion from speaking at the Brian Terry dinner in Tucson earlier this year. You might remember Brian Terry was the border agent who was murdered at the border. I got to sit with his mom, his sister, and his brother. And the honoree that night was Sue Krentz. Sue's husband, Robert, was murdered at his southern ranch. And the question that was posed to the audience is, what has our federal government done in response to these tragedies? Does anybody know the answer? It's actually, they have done something. They put up signs in the desert warning us that dangerous people are among us. And if you see one, call 911. They put the cost and the action back on the state. And I agree, it would be humorous if it wasn't so tragic in terms of what's happened. So I've said my position on this is all of the above, or whatever it takes, which includes fencing, satellites, new technology, a reorganization of our Department of Public Safety funds in terms of how we organize our law enforcement assets, a restructuring of our RICO funds to have an infusion of cash to county prosecutors and county sheriffs, and that we can focus on where the real issue is. I mean, the reason I think the federal government should be on this today is because in a post-9/11 world, this really is a national security issue. But secondly, it's a transnational crime issue. We have drug cartels and human traffickers that are coming through our Tucson sector, and it's over 80 miles of Arizona border that is wide open and unprotected. And Arizona's situation is different than our other southern border states. Texas has a river, New Mexico has a mountain range, and California does have a fence. Our border, you can walk across it completely undetected. And then lastly, it is an immigration issue. And my belief is we are a nation of immigrants, and we all have our personal family story about that. But we're also a nation of laws. and this governor help enforce those laws. Any other questions? I'll give you the last question.
I want to go back to education.
Yes, sir. Please.
Education is just like any other corporation or business, good and bad, or integration.
Yes.
And education has been taking a real dump in this country for the last 2 years. Part of the conversation that does not occur, I'm going to ask a question about that conversation. What role and responsibility do parents have in ensuring that their children are ready and eager to learn in the classroom? And if that is so, how would you hold parents accountable?
So this will be the last question. I want to just repeat the question so everyone can hear it. And it's what role or responsibility do parents have that their children are ready to learn in the classroom? This is anybody that's my age or older grew up in America that was the #1 K-12 education system in the world. And we were so far and away #1, nobody even knew what #2 was. Today we're not on anyone's top 10 list as an industrialized nation, and I think we should find it unacceptable as Americans. So, of course, I'd like to see parents play a greater role in their child's education. A lot has changed in America over the last 40 years around the family. A lot of that government can't do much about. What government can do is ensure with the $9 billion that we're spending in the state of Arizona to educate just over 1 million school children, that these kids, regardless of what background they come from, when they're in the classroom, they're experiencing a year of growth for a year of seat time. I think there will be unbelievable consequences if we say, well, somebody comes from the wrong side of the track, or they don't know who their father is, or their mother's on some sort of assistance as some type of an excuse that they shouldn't learn their lessons and learn the fundamentals. So yes, I want to hold parents accountable to what their role is in this equation. But the heroes in this equation are teachers, all right? And we've got plenty of evidence that teachers inside the classroom make the difference. And that doesn't matter if it's Sam Ducey in 4th grade or any child across the state. There's an organization called Teach for America. I was lucky enough to sit on their regional board. They take the best and the brightest of America's college graduates and they pay them the teachers' wages. And actually Yahoo and Microsoft and Google came to them and said, quit stealing our employees. And these are young people that are mission driven. And they put them in the toughest school districts in the country with the lowest funding. And the charge is to bring these children up to grade level. So teachers are the ones we should incent, reward, honor, and embrace. And you'll never hear me speak like some others in elective office as if they're blaming the teachers. So yeah, I want to see parents do their role, but regardless of what's going on in the family, there are consequences for children who can't read and can't add at age 18. And it's our duty as a state, and this is the state obligation in our Constitution, is K-12 education. This is not something we look to Washington, D.C. for. I'll close there. I'm going to turn it over to Alex, but I want to say thank you. It's great walking into a packed room, at this stage of the campaign and having people so nice and polite and warm and welcoming with these questions. If you like what I'm talking about, please help me spread the word. What you say about me at this stage of the campaign is so much more important than what I say about myself. And if you need answers to questions, you can go to DougDucey.com, Doug Ducey on Facebook, or at Doug Ducey on Twitter. And once again, I want to say thanks to Alex and all of you for being here.
And unfortunately,